Koppel, host of the Time for Coffee podcast, where you get firsthand career advice into the jobs and industries that interest you the most. And before we start today's show, I have a quick favor to ask you. If you haven't already, I'd be incredibly grateful if you give us a rating and a review on iTunes. And if you're like me, you need to do it now because you'll forget later and because it's the best way to help others who may be in search of career advice to find this free resource. So press pause if you haven't done it and do it right now. I'll wait. Thanks so much and enjoy today's show. Hey there, Java Junkies. Welcome to another K-Cup mini episode of Time for Coffee. By the way, K-Cups come in 3 sizes, single, double, and triple shots, or roughly 1 minute, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes in length. So if you don't have time to throw back an entire caffeinated career conversation, these K-Cup mini episodes of T4C can give you a quick caffeinated fix, whether you're on the go or you only have a few minutes to binge. So grab your mug and take a chug, because it's time for a caffeinated career double shot K-Cup with my guest, Joel Forman. So, Joel, just very briefly, could you give us broad brushstrokes what our listeners will find in Forman's Financial Facts, your 8-step plan?
I will absolutely share that with you. So we start off with the personal budget. I teach you how to build it. I teach you how to manage your checkbook. And this is all done in Excel and with all references, and I referenced what column has what in it and how it ties out and how everything foots, and I use colors. So it's very easy to follow. And I reinforce that with a couple of exhibits. So then in that budget and in those exhibits, it shows you to put money away for savings and investments. So then when we go into the savings and investment buckets, and I'm suggesting paying yourself first and cash is king and building up an emergency fund. Who doesn't need an emergency fund? Or maybe you didn't think of it before. Well, after the pandemic happened, I'm sure everybody thought about it. If you had it, you were in good shape. If you didn't have it, you know that in the future, things can happen at any time and you need to be ready. And the more you had saved and invest at that point, the stronger you were to survive this storm that we're still not quite out of. So then investments. Well, what do you do with the investments? You know, there's 401k, which is part of retirement, but it's also part of your investments. So there's stocks, there's cryptocurrencies, there's bonds, there's CDs. I go into what some of those vehicles are. And when I talk about the stock market, I talk about the different sectors because you want to spread your risk with your investments also. So then I talk about retirement planning, and I talk about the 401ks, and I talk about individual retirement accounts that you can fund yourself and then also manage where those investments go. I also talk about building your credit. I talk about the credit scores, what they mean and how they will impact you. I talk about primary loan types. Now, this is really important. When you're a homeowner, in addition to the mortgage, you might have an equity loan or an equity line of credit. I explain what those two things are and the differences between them and how you use the equity in your home. And the equity in your home is basically what your home is worth less what you owe. So let's give an example just to reinforce that real quick. So let's say your home is worth $200,000. You owe $100,000. So your equity in the home is $100,000, and you can take an equity line of credit or an equity loan based on that. So I go into stuff like that. Life insurance. Everybody's probably thinking, oh my gosh, Joel, I'm young. Who cares about life insurance? Well, it's not for you. It is for your loved ones. And let me give you some advice. While it's important to start saving for money and investing money while you're young, it's also important to get that life insurance in place while you're young. And hopefully, presumably, you're most healthy that you will be. As you get older, it becomes more difficult because health factors come in and that affects your premium. And if you get term life insurance in particular, that's very, very cheap and you can get big face value amounts. And the reason why you want to think about this is, let's say you and your significant other start off and you're in the first couple of years, you buy a house. God forbid something happens to one of you and you lose that other person's income. It's bad enough that they're going to be dealing with the loss and the emotional tragedy of everything they're going through. You don't want to compound that with a financial fear of losing their home. So I won't get into that more now, but that's why you want to think about it now.
So I'm sorry, are you saying that if you have life insurance, that could be used to help you if your partner loses their job?
Well, there are life insurance policies that have cash values. That is something that you can use. What I'm suggesting in this case is if, God forbid, they die and you don't want to lose your lifestyle, and especially let's say you have a child or two at the time, you want to have some insulation financially in addition to the investments and savings you already have so that the lifestyle does not go along with the person.
I see. Of course.
But yes, there are financial vehicles, insurance vehicles that you can put in money and then you can borrow from yourself. I don't go into too much of that in this, but I've talked about it on Clubhouse and I have talked about it in some of my videos. We, of course, have a link to Forman's Financial Facts in show notes for this episode. So I think you're definitely going to want to check it out because, gosh, I'm thinking I want to check it out, Joel, because I am terrible when it comes to this stuff. Thanks for tuning in to this K-Cup mini episode of Time for Coffee. If you want to listen to our entire caffeinated career conversation, please check out the show notes for this episode. Thanks so much for listening to this latest episode of T4C. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching services for confused college students and recent grads, feel free to check out the Time for Coffee website under the coaching tab at time4coffee.org or text me at 202-236-5712. That's 202-236-5712.